Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. The only thing crazier than life outside prison walls is the drama unfolding within. Today on rSpace, Jerry Springer meets orange is the new black. Up first, this cheater wasn't just crafting fantasy worlds on her laptop. Would I be the a-hole if I told my male 46 kids, male 16, female 18, their recently deceased mother, female 44, cheated on me? This wound's still a bit fresh. A month ago, my wife of 22 years tragically died in a car crash. Cynthia was one of those drivers that loved to stare into her phone, and unfortunately, this bad habit caught up with her in the last week of January. I was pretty devastated when the police showed up at my door and told me she had a fatal accident, and I wanted to honor her somehow. At the time of the accident, I had no idea she was having an affair. The last 4 or 5 months, I did notice she was pulling away and our intimacy decreased, but I thought this was just something that happened to couples after 20 years. So I didn't pay much mind to it. But, at least from what she told me, Cynthia started to get into writing. She was constantly on her laptop, typing away at all hours. She told me she was working on a fantasy book, hopefully the first of a series. When I asked more, she said it was about a fantasy world where her super advanced human race appears and interacts with orcs and elves and magic with laser guns and high tech. It sounded very cool, and Cynthia promised as soon as she had a first draft she liked, she would let me read it. I decided to honor her by getting the draft of her book and hiring a writer to clean it up and publish it with a novelty press. I got on her laptop and no book, no sign at all. I opened her Chrome, thinking she might have written it in Google Drive, and saw a bunch of pinned tabs. One was a Facebook Messenger tab with a ton of her messages with the man John. I have no idea who John is, never met him, but they talked about meeting up, exchanged photos, everything. The last messenger John sent her was 2 days before Cynthia's accident, the two saying they loved each other, and him saying he was going on a business trip to Germany. The messages between Cynthia and John have shown they met up at the house more than once, so I already had the locks changed. Not sure if John is back yet, and frankly, don't care if he is. I was thoroughly devastated. She did have a Google Drive tab, but in her drive wasn't a book about elves versus Vulcans, but a shared document with John. The document was a plan her and John drafted on how to divorce me, turn the kids against me, and take our home and as much money as possible. One thing she noted was she had been taking money, a few hundred a month, and putting it in a separate account. I got the bank thing sorted out and the money in the kids' college account. I've also been going to therapy twice a week now. It is hard to be mad at someone dead, especially someone everyone else in your life is grieving and praising as a wonderful wife and mother. I've asked my therapist if I should tell my kids about what Cynthia has done and what she was planning to do. My therapist cautioned me about this. He said they'd just lost their mother, and being told this was condemning her memory. Damnatio memoriae. Maybe now is not the time, but I think eventually would be a time for my kids to know. Most comments advised against telling the kids right now. Looks like Cynthia wasn't just writing fantasy in her spare time, she was living it. Elves, orcs, and laser guns got nothing on the drama she cooked up. I mean, planning a divorce with a side of betrayal while drafting a novel? Hey, at least she was dedicated to her craft, right? But seriously, finding out your spouse was plotting against you is a real plot twist of its own. Therapy twice a week sounds like a good start, OP. And as for the kids, maybe hold off on the mom was actually a supervillain reveal for now. Let them remember her as the talented writer she wanted to be. Just maybe leave out the part where she turned into a real-life antagonist. Update post, 5 days later. Some things have happened since last time. To answer some questions, I've gone to the bank and got control of Cynthia's account and transferred the money into a savings account for the kids. Also, my kids already suspected. Tuesday night, my eldest Michelle said her and my son Jason had something to say to me. They sat me down in the living room and Michelle said, "We think mom was cheating on you." They both said they weren't sure, but it was eating them up, seeing me in extreme grief the past month, and they thought I should hear what they suspected. They brought up how Cynthia was always away, and when she was at home, she would say strange observations about me. Stuff like, "Isn't it weird your dad's working late this week?" This is one of those seeds Cynthia mentioned in her document that she wanted to plant in the kids. Michelle said her suspicions went high the week before the accident, when she got home from school and saw a strange jacket on the coat hook by the front door. It wasn't any jacket Jason or I had, so she was very suspicious about it. I told both my kids that I didn't tell them, but I found evidence on their mom's computer when I was looking for the book she said she was writing. Michelle wanted to see the evidence, but Jason said he doesn't want to think or talk about mom for a while. I shared the info with Michelle after she insisted she already suspected her mom and was ready for it. It feels good to now have someone close that can talk to me about this beyond my therapist. Yesterday afternoon, I was home alone when I heard someone jiggling the back door's knob. I went to the door and saw a man I've never saw before trying to use a key on the lock. I told him to step back from the door, and he almost jumped. I opened the door a crack and asked him who he was and what he was doing in my backyard. It was John, Cynthia's affair partner. He told me that he worked with my wife, and he just got back from a trip and saw Cynthia died on social media, and him and Cynthia were starting a business. They had a business bank account with his investment money in the business, and he was wondering if I could help him get the business funds transferred over. I looked him straight in the eye and said I was at the bank and Cynthia didn't have an extra business account, and I had no idea what he was talking about. John also said that he wanted to check my wife's things for any sensitive business documents. I said he was a stranger and wasn't welcome in my home, especially since he tried to enter without permission. John looked defeated, but did suggest he would consult with a lawyer about his sensitive business documents and business funds. One reaction from the community: the effing audacity of Cynthia's affair partner to come begging for money for the man whose wife he cheated with. He sounds shady and selfish AF. This is the last thing OP and his kids need while they're grieving a very complex and difficult death and circumstances. I hope OP invests in some cameras in case John comes back. Look who decided to crash the party. John, the sketchy business partner with the morals of a dumpster fire. Seriously, the nerve of this guy. Coming around asking for business funds like he's entitled to anything after wreaking havoc on your life. And props to you for keeping your cool and shutting him down. Sorry, buddy, no extra business accounts here, just a whole lot of grief and disbelief. Classic. But seriously, investing in some security cameras might not be a bad idea. After all, you never know when Mr. Shady might try to pull another stunt like that. Stay vigilant, OP, and keep that back door locked tighter than Fort Knox. As for John, well, karma's got a way of dealing with guys like him. Let's just hope it's sooner rather than later. You've raised some great kids who are looking out for their father. It just sucks how they put 2 and 2 together and the math checked out to be that their mom was a gigantic cheater. What do you make of this? Meanwhile, up next, a tale straight out of the prison yard. My coworker's wife cheated on him with me, and I unknowingly told him all about it. This all happened about 6 years ago. I, 26 male, was working as a correctional officer. I worked the evening shift from 2 to 10 p.m. Me and a friend from work, let's call him Ed, decided to work overtime at a different prison for a week because him and his wife had just had their second child and he needed the money. So being a good friend and extremely bored, I decided to tag along. After work one night, me and Ed get all the paperwork done and we set off to go stay in a hotel that the prison paid to put us up in. What they didn't tell us was that we had to share a room. So me and Ed get to talking about life and things. We get to the topic of my sex life, and at the time was just a few girls here and there, nothing special. And he says, well, while we are here, might as well have some fun. I didn't think much of it and went to bed because we had a long week ahead of us. We had to work around 15 hours the next day. After work the next day, I met up with Ed to head back to the hotel, and he tells me that a couple of girls want to go grab dinner and a drink. I'm all for the 4 of us going out and letting off some steam after work. Well, one thing leads to another, and all of us are back at the hotel room drinking, and Ed takes one of the girls to bed. Let's call her Jane. While they are going at it, I'm making moves on the other. Let's call her Samantha. While Ed and Jane are going at it, me and Samantha are losing clothes and made it to the bed. We have sex for a while. I bust, take a shower, and pass out. We did this every night for a week until me and Ed had to head back home and start back at our unit. On our first day back, one of my coworkers, let's call him Nick, asked how the overtime went because he was thinking of going next. That's when Ed chimed in and told the story of the girls we met. Nick looked at me and started asking questions about the girl, what she was like, and other things. Then he paused and asked if she had a tattoo on her leg. I was shocked at this question before I had time to answer. He asked if her name was Samantha. I finally stammered out, yeah. He just took a deep breath and said, that's my wife. We got married last month, so we were doing overtime to help our finances get back on track. I was stunned and said sorry, I didn't know she was married, and left the next day. I was forced to work as far away from him as possible. My lieutenant found out and told me that I was going to work the same position for as long as Nick worked there, or I could resign. I choose to resign. I never found out what happened after everyone stopped talking to me, so I can guess. If you'd like an update, let me know and I will get in touch with Ed to get the rest of the story. Thanks for reading. Now some thoughts from the community. First up, well, you didn't know it. She's a hoe. Hope he divorces her. The OP replies, I don't think it was the first time from the way he acted. The next person chimes in, corrections is a cesspool of cheating significant others and spouses. I think due to high stress and close-knit family mentality that no one on the outside truly understands. It makes it easy for coworkers to get emotionally invested, which almost always turns physical. And the brotherhood mentality keeps the cheaters protected from the spouses or significant others on the outside. Unfortunately, if it had been flipped with him cheating on her, he would have been protected, lies, and cover-up so that he could have continued. You didn't know, so he definitely shouldn't have held it against you. But unfortunately, that's not how the world works. You're a brother, and you crossed a line by sleeping with his wife, whether you knew it or not, and now he has to see your face and potentially save and protect you. Yikes. Talk about a workplace hazard. Seriously, what are the odds of accidentally getting entangled in your coworker's marital web? Who knew the prison yard was the perfect breeding ground for love triangles? And let's give a round of applause to Ed for his stellar matchmaking skills. Nothing like a bit of extramarital activity to spice up an overtime gig. And poor Nick, just innocently asking about the overtime hustle and getting hit with the news that his marriage is serving as a punchline in the world's darkest joke. Let this story serve as a cautionary tale for anyone thinking about mixing business with pleasure, or at least checking for wedding rings before hitting the hotel room. After all, nothing says team building like destroying someone's marriage. Update. I got in contact with Ed and some of the guys we worked with. Lace your boots, this update is wild. Ed and his wife had a little rough patch, but we are doing great. Kids are healthy and wife is happy. 2 weeks after I resigned, Ed did as well. He found a better job closer to home and currently on a road trip to his hometown in El Paso. After the week-long affair, Jane had a miscarriage, got scared and called Ed's wife. They talked it out and everything seemed fine until a month later she was caught on camera doing drugs and getting double-teamed by some prisoners in their cells. She got fired and arrested. All I could find out is that she is now a mother of 3. The oldest was confirmed to be one of the prisoners she got railed by and lives in a nasty trailer park. Nick and Samantha. From what the guys told me, Nick made Samantha quit working at the prison and go work at a daycare. She's not on social media, but Nick is. Turns out she had multiple affairs with coworkers before quitting and got pregnant. She insisted it was his, but when the baby was born, it was clearly not his. Nick blasted her all over social media for it and left her. He then got shunned by his church for everything he said about her, and it was some nasty stuff. Quit his job and moved to another state. From what the guys told me, it got really messy and all of the officers involved in the affair got placed on probation and told not to speak of it anymore. I'm sorry, Nick. Hope you're doing better. Multiple affairs, paternity disputes, and a social media smackdown. Truly the stuff of legends. And let's not even mention the church shunning. Nothing says redemption like a good old-fashioned public scandal. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Thank goodness you got the heck out of there, OP. Dodged a few for sure. Do you know a guy like Nick? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.